Radio.
And welcome to A Kind Voice on Big Ideas and Philosophy. I'm your host, David Levins, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Jennifer Chenoweth. Jennifer's project, the Hedonic Map of Austin, Texas, connects emotions, community emotions, with this interesting, multi-layered map that connects with many other things. So I think you're going to find Jennifer's work fascinating. Jennifer, welcome to the program.
Thank you, David. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thrilled to have you. Can you tell the folks a little bit about what the project's about?
Sure. All my projects start with good conversations with my lovely friends, and we were having just a conversation about how we create attachment to place, about that there are always these places you go over and over again to seek good experiences, even though you might not know what type of experience you'd have. And that in a city, people go to those places over and over again, and we have a kind of a collective attachment to certain places. So that was kind of how it began, was just asking that question.
Okay, and then you found the way to map this information. Can you walk through the process of how you created this XYZ atlas and created the map?
Sure. So once we started asking where we have experiences that create meaning for us, we came up with 20 questions, 10 positive emotion questions and 10 negative emotion questions. And these questions are also kind of coded to Robert Plutchik, who was a psychologist in the 1970s, who came up with the theory of emotions. And his theory of emotions had kind of a chart that visualized how all emotions work together on kind of a wheel or a spectrum. So adding to the colors of that spectrum, we asked 10 positive emotion questions, such as where have you laughed the hardest, or where did you get your faith in humanity restored, or where did you fall in love? And then we asked 10 negative emotion questions, such as where did you lose something or someone that was irreplaceable? Where did you get your trust betrayed? Or where did you act horribly according to your own standards? And sometimes those painful experiences, even though we don't set out to seek them, really allow us to appreciate the positive experiences that we have. And so using Robert Plutchik's chart of emotions, we're talking about how all of our emotional experiences, which usually happen in places, often with people, create meaning in our lives and a sense of emotional wholeness. So to get to your question about the map, it's a several-step process. So after people started answering those questions, like where did you laugh the hardest, they might put a location, and it might be at home, and they would give us a cross street, or a part of town, like at a swimming pool. And then we would have an X and Y longitude and latitude coordinates for that place. And then we gave it a Z point up if it was a positive experience and a Z point down if it's a negative experience. We would assign that question a color from the emotion chart, and we created a topographic map using geographic information systems, or GIS, to create a collective map of our highs and lows.
And can I drill down on that point a moment?
Sure.
So the X and the Y are the specific geographical location, and
correct.
The Z then represents the high and the low of the experience. Is that correct?
Correct. It's 1 point up if it's a regular positive experience. It's 2 points up if it's an intense positive experience. It's 1 point down if it's a regular negative experience, and 2 points down if it's an intense negative experience.
Okay, and the GIS you're referring to, that's what you see when you go to Google Maps, like the street level, and they could add different layers of life onto the geographical level. Is that correct?
Pretty close. GIS includes Z points, and Google Map is more XY points, and you can get the XY point for any location in the world off of Google Earth. And, of course, that is on a sphere. It's a little bit of the information, but it's a little bit different than a topographic map, which bumps up levels like as in a mountain or a hillside, or down as if into a ravine.
Okay, and it's very interesting to me because it seems you have the Z points, and they just measure the highs and lows, but it seems you could have different types of Z points if you had more than 3 dimensions to work with.
Possibly, but that's why we use the colors to indicate which negative emotions.
Oh, okay, now it's very clear. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so you have the map.
Uh-huh.
You're creating this map, and can you go from there?
Sure. We started with the survey published on my website at xyzatlas.org, and we also started having art installations and events, and were fortunate to get some press articles that spread the word about the project in our city, and people started filling out the survey. And with 60 responses, we were able to make the first set of maps, topographic, colorful maps of our highs and lows. And the exhibition launched in 2013 at CoLab Projects in East Austin with the debut of the first set of maps. One was using a program called ArcGIS, where it had a lot of graphic detail, but it's kind of an overhead view. And then we also plugged the data into another program called ArcScene, where you could tilt the map so that you could really see the peaks and valleys.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you created the maps using this GIS and the various applications you just described, and these were computer maps, correct?
Correct. They're digital information maps.
Okay, and then from the computer maps, I guess you kind of abstracted them into artwork.
Well, yeah. I mean, the maps themselves are made with a lot of graphic design decisions. No two cartographers would ever make the same exact map. So the first edition was in collaboration with a cartographer named David O'Donnell, and he also has an artistic bent and was really excited about the project. I didn't see the map until I had given him all the information he needed to make the programming choices, and then he sent it back to me. So there was a big woohoo moment when I first saw it on my computer screen when he emailed it to me for the first time. That was very fun. And then I realized that the data is really detailed so that if you zoom in on particular areas of town where there's a lot of, like an entertainment district or something, there's just a lot of answers in specific spots. And there was one really, really, really high peak that was all bright colors, and that was a natural spring-fed pool that's very famous here, and it's where a lot of people go to reconnect with nature or laugh. So it was really interesting to see that there was a kind of a high and a winner on the map of where we go for positive.
Interesting, and I just want to go back to what you said. You used the term cartographer. I've never heard that term before. What does that mean?
Someone who makes maps.
Oh, that's simple. And the maps are beautiful, and so the maps are artwork in themselves before you create three-dimensional versions of them.
Yes, but they're also a true collaboration, in that I brought half the information to it, and David O'Donnell brought a lot of information to it and made decisions, and then the final version was one we agreed upon. So that was very fun. It wasn't that he just executed a plan that I had.
It's very nice that it's a collaboration between the two of you, but then it's really a collaboration of all the people who contributed the source data, so it's really a community collaboration.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so rich, is that it's all of our voices and experiences coming together to create a visualization of meaningful experiences. Like, it's very satisfying to me and exciting.
It's a very beautiful thing. Then from the maps, then you created physical versions of what the map was saying. Can you talk about the connection?
The maps themselves are the project, but then I love making sculptural or visual works to catch people's attention so that they give us the information to make the maps with. So I've been trying to kind of make visual explanations of what got me thinking about this as kind of a way to, I guess as an artist, you're earning people's trust so that they want to show up and want to participate. It's not a government survey. It's not a paid project. It's something that you have to make people care about for them to want to share all of this intimate stories in places with you. And I guess I put myself out there as an artist to earn their trust and to earn their interest, and then they participate in the project. So in addition to the digital map that we create, we've done a number of events where we've drawn a scale map of our city on a field using soccer field chalk, and we ask people to walk around this map of our city as if they're kind of giants on the field of experience and put little survey flags down and mark places and get them to really kind of more physically interact with the project, which is a different way in than having you type in answers on a computer screen. And not everybody loves everything digital, and some people don't want to physically participate. So I try and make different ways in for different types of people. So I want this to be as socially inclusive as possible so that I get really different responses, not all the same type of people's responses. So I've made a couple other big sculptural projects in addition to the live mapping events, which have been really
And can we talk a little bit about the live mapping events?
Sure.
So people walk around on a field that represents a map of Austin. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and they go to the places where they experience the highs. And then do they talk about them? Is it an interactive, almost conversational?
Well, these stories are really personal and intimate, and I don't want to put people too much on, like I'm already asking them for their answers, but I want to make sure they feel safe and that these answers are anonymous. So we give them a clipboard with the paper survey and then a set of these survey markers, and we kind of send them out we orient them to the map, and then we send them out to write down their answers and to walk around and put a flag in that place. And so it gives them a chance to really reflect and also to realize that maybe in one whole part of town, that's why that part of town is home, because everything important that's ever happened to them all happened within a couple-mile radius, you know? And you might not make that connection if you just did the computer survey online. So it takes it one step further.
This is tremendously interesting because there's layers and layers to what you're doing, and I want to get into some of those different layers, but we need to take a break.
Okay.
So we'll be right back after this message.
Great.
The alchemy of kindness is one that we believe. When we reach out to each other, you know we both receive.
Hi, I'm Bruce Grammel, and I'm one of the original hosts on A Kind Voice Radio. My song, The Alchemy of Kindness, is about the good things that happen when kind voices come together. What you're about to hear is an invitation from author Mara Wilson, whose 46-year-old buddy, Al Scarborough, from a game-playing group, needs a new heart. So I'm asking you to please open your heart to Al's story and imagine if we can all work together to make our world a kinder, more connected place.
Imagine your own heart betraying you with every beat. Imagine you're 46 and waiting for a heart transplant. Imagine you're told you need $120,000 to be saved. Imagine your time running out with every beat of your heart. Al Scarborough doesn't have to imagine it. He's living it. Now imagine that you helped Al by sharing his story with your family or friends. Imagine his story going viral. Imagine Al with a new heart. Please help save Al's life. You can find more information about Al Scarborough on Facebook at We Heart Al or at Al Scarborough Support Team on GoFundMe.com. Thank you.
When kind voices come together, it seems we're never alone. Kind Voice Radio.
And welcome back to Kind Voice on Big Ideas and Philosophy. I'm your host, David Levins. And guys, I encourage you to take a look at the links that Maya just described, because the story is a lot more touching than Maya mentioned. And Al's need is really urgent. So be it if you can contribute or share the link or whatever good energy you could send Al's way, I'm sure it will be appreciated. So, Jennifer, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Good deal. So I definitely appreciate the way you're bringing people and place and emotions together to create this beautiful art. And I love the way you brought it together in this wonderful Kickstarter project. Can you tell the folks about the Kickstarter project?
Sure. So the project's kind of grown and evolved outside of the original idea, which is really lovely and surprising. But now we have over 450 people who've taken the survey, and we've done over 20 live events in Austin, plus a lot of speaking opportunities in schools and in different groups. And everybody wants to see the final results. Well, just like I mentioned earlier that there's this really high point peak on the original map, one of the directors of the Austin's Parks Department, Museums and Culture Division program, Laura Esparza, saw this map when it first came out, and she was so excited to have a visual art way to talk about why Zilker Park and Barton Springs are so important to us. And for her, that really put the arts right at the fore of describing nature and beauty and community in an environment where we go to socialize, not just to seek solace or solitude. So she suggested that we have the final exhibition at Barton Springs and Zilker Park. And so that is coming up in May of this year. And I'm putting together a Kickstarter campaign, and it's live now. If you search under XYZ Atlas, you'll find it on Kickstarter. And it allows you to pre-order the final map with all the new results, which we'll release at the May show. And we've also begun a catalog for the project, which we'll release at the May show, that tells the stories and shares some of the pictures from the art events and some photos of the places that are important to us, and basically just describes the whole project as it's evolved and existed in Austin. So it tells the 3-year story of the project, and you can pre-order the catalog online. Plus, there are all these beautiful sculptural representations of these ideas of emotional wholeness or marking a place. And we've made small handmade and 3D printed artworks that you can order on the Kickstarter, as well as contribute to the project overall.
It's a beautiful thing, and we have a link to the Kickstarter right in the show description, so people can click on that. Now, what day is the event? You mentioned it's in May.
Yeah, so the preview party will be May 12th, and then we have a big public art interactive studio tour run by Big Medium, which is a wonderful local arts nonprofit, and they produce 2 studio tours, one called the East Austin Studio Tour and one called the West Austin Studio Tour. And I'm a little famous around here for the East Austin Studio Tour because 2,000 to 3,000 people come through my house and studio every fall.
Wow.
So that's my running joke in Austin is you've been in my house and I don't know your first name. But the West Austin Studio Tour is a little bit more spread out, and Barton Springs and Zilker Park are right in the heart of the West Austin Studio Tour area. So we're going to have the final show during West, which is May 14th, 15th, and 21st, 22nd. And we'll have the interactive map project. We'll debut all these pieces, the final map. We'll have a panel discussion and a film screening, and it's just going to be a huge celebration of the project and of Barton Springs and Zilker Park.
So this is a beautiful story, and it's evolved in different directions. Is that accurate?
Yes. I just started out wanting to ask my friends some juicy questions. and then everyone said, this is so cool. You have to do more with it. I'm like, I love to commit to stuff that I can do myself because I know I can complete it. But this has really grown, and I've had to enlist a lot of collaborators and experts and things and I've found some amazing people to work with, one of whom is a mechanical engineer who helped me create a mechanical lotus flower sculpture that is a visualization of this idea of emotional wholeness. So it takes the emotion chart and then adds to it a 3-dimensional spherical flower that opens and closes. And he helped me do the mechanical design. His name is John Dolasek. And then he also, and this is like that giant 20-foot by 8-foot sculpture is astonishing to me. But what's also astonishing is he helped design a 3D printed one that also opens and closes.
Wow.
So I've got a little mechanical 3D printed sculptural flower that you can buy on the Kickstarter, and that's a small, affordable piece that you can have in your house. And then from that, I asked a friend who's a metalsmith, and he makes small mechanical metal sculptures, and I said, have you seen my piece out at the Elizabeth Ney Museum? And he said, yes. And I was like, can you make me a small metal one? And he was like, yes. And so now I have a collaboration with him. His name is Matt Norris. And there's a little tiny brass one that opens and closes. And it's just so exciting to me to get to collaborate with these really smart people who can fabricate things I cannot, to do things at different scales and in different mediums that make it affordable for more people to have them.
Oh, it's such an interesting thing. And the sculpture you're talking about, I believe it's the Dance of the Cosmos?
Correct.
Solar-powered, right?
Yeah, it's a solar-powered flower. It looks like a lotus, and it's got 8 lunes or petals, and when they close, they're a sphere. When they open, they're just a big, beautiful flower. And it's etched with some automatic writing on the inside of the flower petals, and it's got this beautiful patina on it, and it sits on top of a 20-foot diameter concrete tile base that we cast in my backyard. And each concrete tile has a different hand-pigmented color so that it represents, you can stand on the emotion chart and then also understand that as a way to accept all your feelings and experiences. And then you also have this ball that is closed and then is open. And that acceptance is also the acceptance that sometimes we're open and sometimes we're closed, and that's all part of the process.
Yes, and some flowers close at night and open during the day.
Yeah.
So it has a great connection with nature. Now I want to connect it with something we're doing here in Georgia. We have a community garden cooperative, and we work together to plant things, and then we share what we grow. So we sort of this blank canvas, and then what manifests itself on the canvas, the garden, the fruit, is really a combination of the spirit we all bring to the garden if a beautiful garden manifests itself. So I kind of view the garden as a work of art that manifests itself from the spirit, and that's one of the things that I see in your project, how you're taking the spirit and the emotions of people and you're manifesting art. Is it an accurate connection?
I believe so. And, we come together over food. And if you grow the food together and then eat it over a shared meal, that's a really beautiful thing. I can garden. I have a kitchen garden. It's not my gift. My gift is creating big visualizations of ideas and creating a way people it anchors them in their body when they see these big pieces. And that is really exciting to me, that like creating a visceral experience that comes in through our eyes and our other senses.
Now, to kind of ignore the borders of reality and just to kind of explore what is possible, now, can you create art that, as that dancing cosmos sculpture opens towards the sun, can one create art based on the emotions of a group that would respond to the emotions of the group and create its own art and colors based on if you can connect the emotions of the group to an art project?
Funny you should ask that, but one of the visualizations we haven't talked about comes from one of the questions I asked in the survey is, where do you go to get your creativity inspired? And I'm usually asking this to people who are not artists, and it's easier for them to answer that question. They might go to a community festival or a museum or or a concert or something that they attend regularly. And for me as an artist, creativity is my day-to-day work, and where did that get started for me? And so I thought, what was the beginning thing that sparked my interest? And it was a video game when I was about 9 years old called Tempest. It was by Atari, and I played it at my local arcade.
How does Tempest work?
It was at that time an arcade game, though you can play it on your computer on a browser now. And it had a geometric shape that was made of colorful linear graphics, and you as a character spun around the outside like a little claw and shot down into this vortex. And it was a geometric illusion of space. So it was a shape that was a 2D flat screen image with the illusion of a depth of space that you were shooting down into like a vortex. And then if you made it through the first level, you'd zoom down into the vortex and you'd be rewarded with a new geometric shape. And I was thrilled. It was bright colors. It was geometry. It was active. I was just completely hooked. And it was my first understanding of how a 2D flat image represented 3D space. I mean, we see perspective drawings, but this was an interactive perspective drawing. And I was really delighted. And in my artwork, ever since, I've been working in between 2D and 3D. And I flip back and forth between drawings and sculptures and drawings of sculptures and sculptures of drawings. And I don't think that is necessarily the process of all artists. That's kind of not solely unique to me, but it's very integrated into what I do. And so I took the answer to one of my 20 questions, and I used it as the visual graphic for the project. So the logo for the XYZ Atlas is an X that is also a perspective illusion of this vortex that goes down into the middle. And then I've also created these big sculptures where if you took this piece and tilted it on its side, you would actually see that it's a perspective illusion of 3D space. So that seems to people to be outside of the XYZ Atlas. However, the shape of it I use as arrows on the map. So I use it as a location marker. So it's a gigantic sculpture that says, you are right here, here, right now. Kind of like that little upside-down drop shape that they use on Google Maps.
And so you are right here, and you're projecting outward to create shapes around you that are art. Am I understanding correctly?
Correct.
Very neat. So, I mean, if you had this machine that people could walk into, because one person might be right here at this moment in their life, but a few months later, they might project different artwork.
Right. So what if we made that giant X-vortex sculpture into an interactive light sculpture that recorded your movements and your emotions like a game, like a giant live video game? And what if there was an X in 3 dimensions so that somebody on the other side of the game was also plugging in their emotions and experiences, and they were basically using the visual artwork as a tool to communicate back and forth, and that it affected the visual color display using programmable LEDs on the sculpture.
Oh,
it's hard to describe, but I've got a little picture of it on the Kickstarter. But that project needs a decent budget to build, so it may not come right away. But I will do it, and it will be fun.
Oh, I mean, the sky's the limit on something like that. And I want to come back after the break and talk a little bit about focus. So we're going to take a quick break right now, and we'll be right back after this good news report.
Excellent.
Tell us about the good news service.
Hi everyone, this is Brianna Dincher with your Good News Report, where we deliver happy and exciting news from all over the world. This week we have a very uplifting story from Lake Charles, Louisiana, where a firefighter rescued 6 baby ducks. The most interesting part is that he brought them to safety with the help of his iPhone. After he was notified that several ducklings had been caught in a drain, firefighter Cody Necht headed out to the location and created quite of a clever plan. He wriggled into the drain and got this bright idea to impersonate the duckling's mother using the quack, quack, quack ringtone on his iPhone. His idea did in fact work, and after about an hour and a half, 4 of the 6 ducklings were rescued. The remaining 2 came out later, and all 6 were finally reunited with their mother. This is definitely a very cute and unique story because it is not every day that you hear of someone spending so much time with such a brilliant trick to rescue little ducklings. In my opinion, Cody is definitely using his kind heart to bring more love to his neighborhood and is helping the small creatures in his community. This week's quote of the week comes from the great Dr. Seuss. Today you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you. Thank you for listening to today's report, and I hope that you continue to use your kind voice to bring happiness to others. Take care, guys.
A Kind Voice Radio.
And welcome back to Kind Voice on Big Ideas and Philosophy. I love that Dr. Seuss quote, there's nobody youer than you. And Jennifer, I think Dr. Seuss would love your project. It would fit right into one of his stories.
Thank goodness for Dr. Seuss. He probably saved my job.
Thank goodness. So you have such big ideas, and others have joined you on this journey because you were able to articulate them and kind of create a good platform for people to join you. And I mean, your vision is so big and so beautiful, but how does one stay disciplined and focused on the practical, creating specific things and not being overwhelmed by the bigness of an artistic vision? So can you speak to that a little bit?
I can, but I won't go into as much detail as I could, which is to say there are a lot of ways we don't really support our creatives in this culture very well, that we think it's funny that it's a starving artist class and like, haha, you didn't pick it for the money. But our ability to stay inspired really relies on creative people getting a chance to do their best work. And if they can't pay their bills, our whole culture is poorer for it. So the limitations or the fear come from, how do I risk something huge and still pay my bills, still feed my family? That's really where the terror comes from, is how am I going to pay for all of this? And I have lived a lovely life so far. I've worked really hard, and I've had enough experiences to look back and say, well, when I set out to do that, I had no money, I had no support, I had no budget, and here it got done. So.
And can we focus in on that part of your life when you had no budget, no limited resources to do something?
I still don't. Every project. I envy a little bit my writer friends who go pitch a project. They might write the idea in the first chapter, and then they get an advance if it works. I have to go make all the work pretty much on spec, or pitch to grant funders, or I'm at the moment doing a Kickstarter. So there's all kinds of ways I have to go out and ask for support, because even if your work does fit into a commercial gallery model, the artist may still not be making any money from that kind of business scenario. Our world has changed so much that there's so much competition for ideas and things, so many different ways that, like all of the previously known ways for an artist to pay the bills are kind of out the door. So it's become a full-time entrepreneur, or have a day job so that you remain free in your mind and your artwork and get to be an artist around that monetary commitment. So I really hope that we find new ways of supporting our artists, and I think all these crowdfunding platforms are a great way to do that. There are more and more online galleries popping up so that artists can sell their work, but you have to make the work all up front on spec. So if you imagined a home builder having to do everything they did on spec, you can imagine the challenges they'd have funding it from the get-go. So similar here.
And what you're saying is a big piece of it, but there's also kind of like a moment of faith. Maybe it's a one-day project that someone does on the weekend to invest $20 in it. There's a moment of faith someone who becomes an artist has, that they could take these raw materials and create something meaningful. Do you sometimes have ideas and then don't go through with them?
A few, but sometimes the idea sticks with you so much that you can't not do it. And to be quite honest, I love being an artist. I love the freedom of it. But it's only because if I don't do it, I'll go dark. I'll be very unhappy. I won't have used my gift of what I'm here on earth to do. I feel like I don't quite have a choice. It's a calling, and you have to heed the calling to feel like your life has meaning, whatever that calling is.
That's such a beautiful answer. Now, part of the art of what you do, I mean, you make beautiful things, but I view part of the art of what you do is you're bringing people and community together. Do you kind of view that as an art as well?
Perhaps. I hope I'm getting better at it in terms of listening, because I feel like for years and years I'd make a thing, I'd put it out in the world at a show or an event. I might get to overhear some people's comments about it. If somebody was really courageous, we'd have a conversation about it, and they'd feel free enough to really express their concerns or criticisms, which is hard to do. It's hard not to just say, looks great, good job, but to really take the risk of a caring, critical conversation. And that's where we learn, and I'm doing this so that I can grow. So I think I tried to get better at listening so that my work could get better, so that I'd have a chance to improve and kind of change the scope and realize what my audience was missing or needed or wished for. So what's really cool about this project is it's kind of a two-way street of inspiration. I try and inspire you, and then you, by trusting me and sharing your stories or participating, inspires me. And that has been the real positive reward of this one, is that I inspire you, you inspire me. Let's see what else we could do, with that momentum.
Oh, what a beautiful answer. And one of our theme songs, Craig Corona says, I can be a kind voice for you, and maybe you can be a kind voice for me. So his theme is together we can be a kind voice, and, we can't do it separately, and something good manifests itself from that connection.
Yes. I have a similar thought that everyone has an answer to your question, and if you spend enough time talking, you might ask that right person that right question, and they might be, oh, I have the answer for that for you. But you'd have to be listening and talking to each other.
That is beautiful how you've just connected the dots. Now, you used Robert Fletcher's wheel as almost a prism to create your art. Can you use other things as prisms to create art that expresses emotions?
I'm sure you could. I do enjoy his theory of emotional wholeness because as an artist I am a visual learner, and no matter how many times I'd try to just mentally tell myself to get past a negative experience, that it's all important, it wasn't until I had his visualization that I was like, oh, got it, wholeness, it's all of it. For me to learn how to accept things that were unacceptable or felt unacceptable. How do you accept rage or fear or betrayal or grief? And it's because they're the counterbalancing experiences to these positive ones and allow you to not complain on a good day. Right? Really get it that every moment is valuable because we do not know what's happening next. So
the wholeness kind of goes to embracing not just the good, but anything that's not so good, to view it as part of this big mosaic you're creating.
Yeah, I feel like I grew up as an at-risk kid, and it took me a while to say, and that is now part of who I am, and I am strong, and I get a chance to survive and thrive. And it was through these ways of understanding acceptance. And so I guess I just wanted to share that idea with others and hope it would, somebody else might find it useful. I like Robert Plutchik's theory. I am not exactly an evangelist of it in that it is the one answer, the only answer. I think we all need our own ways in to finding what the right answers are for ourselves.
So this beautiful mosaic first has to live within you, and then your art projects it out into the physical world and invites others to contribute to help create this community art project.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
It is accurate. And then what's really fun is that I had just envisioned this in Austin because this is the home I know and this is the audience I know. But last year I was invited by Texas A&M University in Bryan and College Station to do a solo show at the Wright Gallery in the Department of Architecture. And I did, and while I was there, I met a person on the chair of the gallery committee, and her name is Dr. Cecilia Giusti, and she said, oh, I just love art. You don't want to get to know me. I'm just a public planner. And I was like, no, in fact, I'm working on this project in Austin that's all about planning and space. And then we just hit up this great conversation. And now I've done 3 different events on the Texas A&M campus to kind of test whether that audience would be interested in this project, and I'm hoping to take the project there in the fall of this year after we wrap it up in Austin. So would love to use this tool as a way to kind of get to know other communities and places. I think that would be really fun.
Now, it's a fascinating thing, and there's so much upside to it. We need to take our final break, and in the final break, we're going to play Craig Corona's song for part of it.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with reaching out when you need. I'll be there for you, and maybe you can be for me. With a kind voice, a few kind words, an open ear for when you need to be heard, a warm heart, we can make that choice to be a kind voice, a few kind words.
Hi, my name is Azim Kamisa. In January of 1995, while delivering pizzas to help him through college, my son Tariq was senselessly murdered by a 14-year-old gang member. Tariq was a wonderful young man who could light up the room with a joke. In the search to relieve my pain, I needed to find a way to use the sadness from this tragedy to help others. So by the end of 1995, after months of agonizing pain and introspection, I chose to start an organization to help stop kids from killing kids. And I reached out in forgiveness to the killer's grandfather and guardian in brotherhood. We have worked together, speaking to over 1 million youth and adults all over the world in bringing the lessons of peace and nonviolence for 20 continuous years. Now I'm asking you to add your kind voice to our efforts. For a peaceful world, we all need to embrace peace and forgiveness. We need you as a peacemaker, having forgiven the past, any enemies, and at last having forgiven yourself for any wrongdoing. To learn more, go to my website. It's azimkamisa.com, which is azimkamisa.com. It is indeed time for peace.
A Kind Voice Radio.
And welcome back to Kind Voice on Big Ideas and Philosophy. We're here with Jennifer Chenoweth talking about a beautiful project. It's the Hedonic Map of Austin, and it's funded through Kickstarter, so I encourage you guys to check out the Kickstarter link, and on that link you could also check out her website for lots more information on this fantastic project. Jennifer, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, David. I'm excited to be having this conversation with you.
Good deal. And you're saying so much, but I want to get back to one of the roots of the project. In the beginning of your Kickstarter video, you said this is a devotional to the place you love, and I interpreted that to mean you consider Austin your spiritual home. What about Austin is so special to you?
Austin is home to me because people are encouraged to be their authentic selves here. No one likes it if you put on airs here. They want you to be yourself. They trust you more. A lot of the best parts of Austin here may happen like at a private business or a city park or something, but they're outside of class. Like you might go to the Continental Club to hear Dale Watson play, and who knows who's going to show up that night? Who knows who else is going to be there with you to have that kind of Austin music experience? And that is really special to me. Not every city or community works like that. And people show up here, and they're curious, and they contribute, and they're friendly. And that has made me always feel socially very safe here to just be myself. And as an artist, that's a good thing for me. And I grew up in an environment that was more conservative, and it wasn't always okay to be me. So I like that about Austin. However, I think through the way our society is evolving and changing, people are a lot more tolerant and interested in other places now, which is really nice to see. And in Austin, we really value our outdoor spaces and our green spaces and our trails and our parks and ways that we can kind of show up and do community festivals or events together. People like experiences here. And that has been a really nice thing to evolve along with, is seeing how our culture here likes to have an experience of being. It's not everything. Things here aren't commercially driven or class driven in the same way. So I like that about Austin.
It sounds like such a beautiful place, and it's a beautiful place that it's an ongoing creation of the community spirit there, it sounds like.
Yeah. We are also in this huge economic boom, and it's dense, and traffic is intense, and I think that makes green spaces and community events even more valued. And a lot of people they're like, great, we'll just bike now. So it's another way to enjoy our usually good but hot weather. And this swimming pool is a spring-fed pool at Barton Springs, and it's 68 degrees all year round, and so it's the place where we all go to kind of celebrate the heat of Texas. So.
Wow, it sounds like a beautiful place. Now,
it is.
A few weeks ago we had artists on. The names were David and Austin, kind of a coincidence, and they were doing this endless orchard project where they plant trees in public spaces, have partnerships with parks and governments to create these orchards where people can just walk by and pick the fruit. And the artists, and they're trying to create this community artwork in the community they live in Los Angeles, and then build out from it to create that community artwork. Can you speak to that a little bit, how a community comes together to make the space they live almost a live-in art project?
Yeah, that sounds like a beautiful project, and we have a big local foods and urban foods movement here, too. And I have some acquaintances and friends who are doing not the same, but also community food and planting projects. And it's so intensely meaningful. We've gotten so far away from the way our food is grown and harvested and prepared and consumed. Everything's so fast, and a friend of mine runs a organic garden here. It's more of a garden. It's a big farm, and they were the first certified organic farm in Texas. And the first time I had some of her vegetables, she had offered them to me on a plate, and I was like, I don't really like that vegetable. And then I was like, I'm probably just being rude. So I picked it up and ate it and was like, oh, that's what that food is supposed to taste like. I had no idea. So it's really interesting to see, especially the generation of people in their late teens and 20s and early 30s doing this new urban foods movement. And our farmers markets and community gardens here are fantastic, and money flies out of my pockets every time I get the food is amazing.
And when you plant the seeds yourself, you have such a connection with the food you eat.
Yeah, you really do.
So your art is physical and certainly intellectual, but is there a musical component to it? Can one write music to express what your art is expressing?
That's a good question. I love music. I listen to music constantly when I'm making work. It's a really important part of it. I probably picked living in Austin because of the music scene, because there's live music here all the time, and we're just thick with talent. Any day of the week there's a show or a festival or a thing to go see. And I've seen astonishing performances here, just truly astonishing ones. And I'm not sure how I would visual or make the sounds from my visual piece. I maybe that's a collaboration that's yet to come. I don't know.
That'd be very cool. Now, so going to these musical shows very frequently, does that somehow connects with your ability to create art? Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's a way for me to listening to music helps me process my feelings and thoughts while my hands and eyes are busy. So
interesting. So, what kind of music do you like to listen to? Is it classical music or
all
is it
over the place?
Genre?
No one genre. I love all kinds of different music. I like to mix it up. Everything from punk rock to country to hip hop to Philip Glass to whatever, just all over the place.
Interesting. Is there any of those that you'd like to leave our audience with?
I am really grateful that people are interested in my work, and you. Thank you, David. And I love ways to make it better. So if anyone has any thoughts or on ideas or collaborations or new directions or a similar project or an idea that they'd like to share, I'd love to hear it. I'd love some help on the Kickstarter campaign. We've got 17 days to go as of this date. It ends on March 8th. And I would love some help making this project as good as it can be so that we have this great time and this great celebration in May.
Yeah, that's going to be a beautiful thing, and I'm hopeful to be able to come out there and see it firsthand. Just the way you organize, like, there's so many beautiful directions you could go, and you can't go in every direction at once. Is there a way you keep all these opportunities well organized?
It's interesting because I spend a lot of time writing exhibition proposals or grant proposals, and sometimes that I get a lot of no's, which is fine. We all do. But sometimes you've planted this idea by writing it out, and then it manifests somewhere else. So it's kind of like the seed you planted one place actually got picked up and, took root somewhere else, and then it sprouts over there, and somebody else calls you and says, hey, I've got this opportunity for this thing. What ideas do you have? And you're like, actually, that would be an even better fit than where I tried to put that idea earlier. So I think it's just a point of faith that you just keep doing it. You are persistent, and even on, not terribly exciting days, you just know that this is what you need to be doing, and you care about yourself and your ideas enough to keep trying, and then you watch where the flowers grow. So.
Well, what a perfect metaphor to wrap up the show. It really connects it all into this bigger garden. So I definitely appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Good deal. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
So that was Jennifer Chenoweth talking about her amazing work in Austin, Texas. And Jennifer's closing thought on interconnectivity reminds me of Joshua Rich's song, Tapestry of Love and Sound, about the connectivity of the work that we all do. So I'm going to close with that song. But if you want more information about our other shows on A Kind Voice Radio or the music that you heard, please check out our website, akindvoice.org. Special thanks to Jennifer Chenoweth for joining us on the program. And here's Joshua Rich with Tapestry of Loving Sound.
Here in our garden, we gather to share all that's inside of us, how much we care. Find strength in our differences and reach common ground. Celebrate our unity in a tapestry of loving sound. So make a kind choice with your kind voice, and united we'll find our kind voices inside, which sing out in unity, creating community and bringing us together as one. Some of us make movies, some of us sing songs, some find forgiveness for a choice that was wrong. Some of us feed children, some help people in need. And all of us in our own way are planting a loving seed. When we make a kind choice with our kind voice, and united we find our kind voices inside, which sing out in unity, creating community and bringing us together as one. And each moment brings on changes, and each change helps us to see there
child.